What's up, everybody? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Sparza, coming to you live. It is 1:08 Best Coast time. I am so excited for you guys to join us today. It's been a heavy week. I understand that. There are a lot of things going on. We're going to have some time to talk about potentially some other events going on, but we have three individuals that had standout performances at yesterday's Submission Underground 14. Before we do, and this is a quiet little thing that I like to have people doing right now, especially at this given time, that really does suck, and we can definitely use your good faith, your good vibes, whatever it is you want to send. A little initiative that we're having folks do at this moment is taking out this little pen and paper, little notepad if you can. Every day, write 3 names, persons, places, things that you want to go ahead and support. So that means financially, if you have the means to go ahead and buy a DVD, a seminar, a private right now, because we all know how bad everybody's jiu-jitsu, please do so. If you don't have the means financially, totally understandable. Volunteer your time, volunteer your efforts to your gyms, because they are definitely going to be in need, especially as they're instituting a whole bunch of new policies and rules, I'm sure, to make it so everybody can get back to the mats. And last but not least, if you don't have either of those things, the easiest thing you can do is check in on your teammates. And when I say check in on your teammates, we talk a lot about mental health, but it's very rare that we actually do it. So the quickest way to do it, send a note to the folks over at your gym, especially if you haven't seen them in a while. Check to see if they're okay. And at the very end of that conversation, you have the ability to talk shit about their jiu-jitsu game, and they can't do anything to you at that moment. Smart. See? All right. Let's talk about our first guest. Our first guest yesterday very much impressed me at Submission Underground 14. He impressed me first with some like very, very distinct, it looked like a match had been lit kind of hair. Peroxide, very, very drastic striking, but his jiu-jitsu ended up being just as striking. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nicholas Maximov to the show. Nick, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. When did you dye that hair?
A month and a half ago, but I re-dyed it like last week. Blonde, but I need to get a better blonder.
When did you decide to do that, and had you done it before? Like, is it just something you felt like doing?
I did it when I was a kid. I hella would dye my hair when I was like way younger, and it's just something spur of the moment. I'm in quarantine. I'm kind of bored, so why not?
Understandable. I mean, you know, everybody tends to do something a little wacky. My wife is trying to cut my hair consistently, given the quarantine, and I could use a good haircut, because if it's not styled right now, it's like I'm terrorizing the Incredibles kind of length hair.
Yeah, for sure.
So, dude, tell me about how the Submission Underground opportunity came together.
I've been competing with them since probably 2016. And I've always just had a connection with the people over there. They're really good people. I like them a lot. And I just asked them if I can compete pretty much. And Heather said, yeah, and put me on the show, thankfully. So it was cool. Cool to do something right now during everything that's going on.
Absolutely, man. I mean, obviously, when you get put in a weird situation like this one, you want as many opportunities to compete just to even stay healthy, you know?
I agree. Yeah, stay in shape. A lot of people aren't doing anything right now, so it's kind of like I'm just getting a step ahead of everyone. And if not, I'm getting 2 steps because I'm working harder than them too. So
good man. Good man. I want to ask you a little bit about what I was seeing from your game yesterday. We'll get into that in a second, but how did it feel to have no audience? Is that something you are used to? I mean, I know you fight MMA as well, right?
Yeah, I do.
So how did it feel to like have an audience taken away from that, considering your...
I didn't like it. It's the best they can do, so I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna do it, and I'll keep doing it if they have it. But I'd rather have an audience than no audience. But you gotta do what you gotta do too, so it's like can't complain, you know. But it just makes such a difference maker, in my opinion, where it can just be like your second man, you know, just having the crowd right behind you. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really enjoy it, but it's whatever.
I mean, obviously it's not their fault, and they want to have an event, so it's not placing blame anywhere. I'm just wondering, and I always feel for the athletes in terms of that extra energy that I think you're kind of alluding to, that fact that you can feed off of that crowd, and it gives you kind of sort of an oomph at times. And there's an adrenaline rush but then there's also a release when you win, and then you get to celebrate with the crowd, kind of a vibe, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's kind of just completely out the window. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. So I don't blame them. I would do the same thing if I could. So I appreciate them, but yeah, it's just weird.
Absolutely. All right. I want to start to talk a little bit about where I was watching your game yesterday. First things first, I saw you were eyeballing this leg when you were in the middle of the roll or the match. And I was like, man, is that guy trying to go for a leg lock now? Was he going for a knee bar? Because in that transition was how you ended up coming up with your finish. Do you mind talking us through that?
Yeah. I was trying to get that heel hook, but I couldn't. I was more kind of just we were practicing this technique at the academy, similar to that. And what I did, and I was trying to roll more to get on top and try to finish it on top, but it kind of just scrambled out. He was a wrestler, so he can scramble pretty good, and he's kind of scrambled out of it. But yeah, it was a cool little move,
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw the roll and I saw it initiate, and it, we did a Let's Watch yesterday, and I'm sure you'll enjoy whatever shit we were talking about you. But as we were watching it, I could see in your eye, like, man, I could finish this right here with this leg. And then as a result of chasing that, you ended up with your guillotine, correct?
Yeah.
Now, how did that happen? Walk us through that.
Well, I got on top with the knee bar, and he did a weird defense where instead of grabbing my head from a side, he went through my arm and on my head like a half Nelson or a full Nelson. So I was like, this is kind of weird. I've never had anyone did that before. So as he did that, he was starting to come up, and I just let go of the leg, and Nate and all of them at the academy are really good at Darce chokes, anaconda choke. So I like being in the front headlock. So I just went. And I tried again more of a front headlock than anything, and ended up just being in guard. Yeah,
I mean, it was impressive, man, because I just knew you get that kind of vibe when you have somebody who looks like they're very comfortable on playing on top. That I think a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners get when they have a wrestler and they go, "Oh, thank God, here is the neck. I need this right now." But for a split second, you took advantage of the situation. You 100% saw it in the right place. So walk me through what happens afterwards, because I see you celebrate. What are you trying to talk to the camera and say? Because I couldn't pick up any part of that.
Yeah, I don't even think it worked. But it was just he just tells you to talk for 5 to 10 seconds in the camera, and it's I don't really know what to say. No one can hear me, and it's I don't know. It was just kind of. I'd rather just get my hand raised and bounce and leave than, I look like a fool talking in the camera. I don't even know what to say. And the room's quiet, so everyone can freaking hear you. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to sound like an idiot, And then you say something stupid, and you're like, oh my God. And the camera didn't even pick it up, so it's even worse. You're like, oh my gosh. But
it just looks like a really uncoordinated version of when they have the sign language interpreter. On conferences and stuff, it felt like a very, very abrasive version of hey man, you, me, we're gonna go out today, McDonald's, and I'm seeing you, and that's great. And and I'm always I have no idea what the fuck they just said.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was weird. I'd rather just get my hand right. Well, you can't touch each other because of the COVID.
Right.
So it's the guy can't touch you or anything, and you're like, I don't know. It was weird. It was awkward. It was more awkward, but it's whatever.
I mean, it is what it is, and I'm not. Again, nobody faults you, but it is kind of interesting to note that is something that does end up happening. Let me ask this though: if somebody were to have given you a after speech kind of a thing, and you got the chance to thank some people, who would you have thanked, and who would you have given a shout out to?
Obviously my fam, everyone at the academy, Nick Diaz Academy out in Stockton. I definitely give a shout out to Claiborne. I'm wearing their stuff right now. Urban Water represent, and I think that's it.
Okay,
that's it. For those three, but those are three people. So
Well, let's start with this. Let's go ahead and get back into the backstory. Where does jiu-jitsu begin for you?
Man, I think I'm cheek. Well, it's funny. Jiu-jitsu, like, it wasn't like popular when I did it, so it was kind of just like different. So I kind of started it when I was young. I think I started when I was 12, and I started out in Chico, California, a few hours up in north of Stockton and San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what year are we looking at here? And like what year would you
But 9 years ago. 9.5 years ago. Okay. So that's like, I'm like 13, I think, 12 or 13 years old when that happened. Yeah.
How did you find yourself getting jiu-jitsu? Were you doing any other sports before this?
Yeah, I was like playing football and played baseball and stuff, but I was like watching Bruce Lee movies actually, and he kind of got me into it. So that's kind of how I started, and then I switched from that to jiu-jitsu and just kind of fell in love with it.
That's great, man. Bruce Lee movies. All right.
Yeah.
So were you the type of kid that was trying to replicate the moves, like the Bruce Lee moves?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like everyone was at one point.
I think we all go through a phase of being like, all right, yeah, let me try this out. But for me,
I agree.
I definitely know that you make your way to going towards more like karate or stuff like that. So I'm always curious, obviously football and baseball, those are more like almost what you're expected to play when you're a kid. So to make the transition to go into a jiu-jitsu class, how do you make it to your first class and where do you go?
I went to the school out in Chico, standalone. I went there and they're still around. They're great people and they're fun and they're really welcoming. I went out there and it wasn't weird. It was just hard getting the techniques at first. That was the hard part. It wasn't rolling or training or anything. It was more just like learning what to do and how to do it. And then once I got it, I felt like I was fine. But that was the main thing, was learning about all of that, really. Learning just techniques and stuff.
Awesome. When do you know that you fall in love with jiu-jitsu?
When I started after football games going to jiu-jitsu tournaments, I would play like on Friday nights for football, and then next morning I'm going to a tournament at 5:30 in the morning. And I'm playing. I mean, and I was starting and everything on defense, and it's like I was playing real football games, but next day going to jiu-jitsu tournament. So that's when I kind of figured out like, oh, this is the sport for me probably.
So we're talking like, playing football is not exactly a cakewalk. So you're definitely getting in there and mixing it up and probably exhausting yourself and then waking up just a few hours later to go do it for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, I was a good football player. I was leading the state in sacks and I think tackles for defensive end, and I was ranked like top 10, 15 in the country for defensive ends at one point, but I just went and wrestled after that. But yeah, no, football is freaking taxing on your body for life,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool though. Yeah, that's when I found out.
So it's just that passion of going to compete and wake up in the mornings and saying like, all right, hey, I know my heart is more here. Like waking up to go do those tournaments, I'm sure is there. Even I'm pretty sure as you're growing up as well, there aren't as many opportunities for jiu-jitsu as there are for football. So is that a hard decision to make at that point in your life?
Yeah. I mean, in that case, I didn't really think about it like that, but I mean, that's actually true. I just kind of did with what I liked more and fell in love with more, and that's kind of my ultimate decision. It didn't really matter the odds or anything. It was more just do what you love and be happy doing it.
Good man. So when did you finally make the decision to start going and competing and doing more martial arts full time?
Well, I wrestled in college too, so that kind of took up some time. But the last 2 years, I've been just doing everything. Just has been MMA. But I did wrestle in college, and that took up a lot of time.
Let me ask this: what is that experience in wrestling in college? What is the difference, I guess, in terms of level and in preparation between high school to college?
I would just say the intensity. You don't really have people that are slacking off. You got people who want to be national champs. So it's kind of just the intensity of everything is just so they don't do anything different from high school. It's just the level of how you go is just crazy. It's unmatched, and the work ethic is ridiculous.
Mm. And was it 2 year, 4 year? How long were you wrestling for? Or where'd you wrestle for?
I was at a junior college for 2 years, and then I was supposed to go to like Oregon State and stuff, and a few other colleges, and it just didn't work. But I was signed to go to Oregon State for a little bit, and grades just kind of fell through, so I just kind of started training full time.
It happens, man. I mean, here's the good news. I always feel like it's one of those things it's hard to explain to people that sometimes the path that seems like you're supposed to go on and it doesn't work is probably meant to be that way. Because to me, when I saw you compete, and I have seen you compete, I've just kind of been like, nah, that makes sense. And I want to bring something to your attention here, because you got one of these photos as we were doing our research yesterday, and we saw you up on the screen. But you got one of these photos that I'm immensely jealous of, because look at this. Bro, look at that. I would kill for a photo like this.
That's a cool photo, huh?
I saw that photo and I was just like, bro, like think about that. Good profile on the arm. You look savage. It's all shadowy. It looks like you just beat the shit out of somebody. Did you end up finishing that Kimura there?
Yeah, I almost broke that dude's arm. I held it for a little too long on accident too, but yeah, I'll send you a video of that. That was freaking gnarly.
Oh, I would love to see that, because I took one look at that picture and I was just like, bro, I like me some Kimuras too. They don't look that good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a hard photo to come by. That was cool. That's like something I'm going to show my kids one day, you know, like something like that.
But imagine our thing. So we do, you know, a little bit of a, like we drink and watch the fights, or we drink and watch the matches. And there was a moment yesterday when I was rolling through, and I'll tell you this. Yeah, obviously you got the photos with Diaz and all these things that should give you fair warning of like, don't talk shit about this guy. I literally was doing this and I'm making fun of you a little bit, and then all of a sudden I see that photo. I was like, yeah, I don't know, I want to make fun of him anymore. I think he's probably pretty good at this. So let's get there. How did you end up meeting Diaz? How do you make the transition over to training with them?
I was my dad and the head instructor, Randy Spence, they used to work together, and then Randy branched off and started doing MMA full time, and pretty much saw him at a tournament like 6-7 years ago, just a local tournament. He said, come by, come through, come train. We said, all right, yeah, for sure. Went in, and like the last 7 years, for like about 5 years, I was on and off. I'd be going there during the summer and stuff, and then I'd say for the last 2 years, I've just been there full time, 2.5 years, something like that, just full time ago. But I met Nate a couple times, just randomly, or you know, train. So.
Okay. What is something that most people don't know about Nate Diaz? Because we know him from his press conferences, we know him from all the things that we see on media. But what is something that you feel like that gets lost? People get to know the real him.
He's actually a nice dude, whether you believe it or not. He's probably one of the nicest dudes you'll meet. Him and his brother.
Because I'll tell you this much, man. I do a lot of MMA coverage, and you know, I've been backstage, and you know, one of the questions I get is like, you know, who's not who they're like, or who's this, or who's that. And I'm like, every time I saw Nate backstage somewhere, like I don't know him personally, but he was very nice, and he was shaking hands. He would greet the fans and all the things. So I was like, yeah, I don't know that when he's not on, it's not quite the show that you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just when you fight, you're just in a more intense setting. So you got someone that wants to take your head off, so you're gonna be a little pissed off. You know, it's just how it is, and they're just really real. I mean, they are how they are on TV, but they're really nice people. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to explain, but I mean, yeah, they're as real as it gets. Honestly, it's crazy. Like, it doesn't feel like anything changes. You know.
So maybe this is the moment when I should break it to you that I do an okay. So I would like to get your thoughts on it to see, you know, you see him, you understand him. I would like to just get some feedback on it. So do you mind giving me something to talk about, Nate Diaz, and we'll see if it holds up.
So wait, what do I say?
Just give me something to talk about that he would talk about and I will do my impression of Nate Diaz to you. And I want to see if it's something that you think is good or not.
Something to talk about, like Jorge Masvidal.
Okay, 1 second. Because it's funny. I mean, it's in the news right now, so it's making my shit laugh seeing them exchange notes to each other where Jorge's like, hey, man, I really want to go back and let's run it back. Here's what I got. I saw Nate, I saw Jorge Masvidal run his fucking own mouth. And I'm like, this little fucking bitch over here. Yeah, dude, you didn't beat me. You didn't fucking kill me. I'm gonna fucking murder you, you little fucking minute.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know? You don't think so?
Uh,
What do I need to do to perfect it a little bit more?
I don't think you can.
Well, see, here's the thing. That'd be like me telling you, I don't think you could beat your next opponent. You'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll work on it a little bit more. So let me ask this: if you had been doing this, what is your MMA career been? Like, what have you been doing? In the mean, like, where does your MMA career begin? I guess we should go there.
What do you mean? Like, did it begin?
Yeah, like, tell us when your first MMA fight started. Like, when did that happen?
Oh, I was in Bakersfield, and that was about 3 years ago, 2017. And I was in Bakersfield, and it was just kind of random, and it was like of the moment. And I was probably like 3 weeks away, and I asked the guy if I can get on. He said, yeah, sure. And it was just kind of like it was like out in the freaking Bakersfield, like the orchards out there. It was crazy. It was like in a little like box, like metal box or something like that. Like I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was crazy. We fought outside, and it was nuts. It was so hot. It was like the middle of summer. It was crazy.
Oh my God. Would you say that it's outside and that was there? Had you ever competed outside for like jiu-jitsu or MMA? Was like the first, or not for MMA obviously, but for jiu-jitsu? Have you ever had like outdoor competition setting?
No, but that'd be tight. Honestly, that'd be hella cool. I didn't think of that. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Oh, bro. I mean, we've run tournaments out here in SoCal that are based out that way and near the beach. So we've put them on near the ocean, the beach. So it's possible. I just wondered, when you say that it was really hot, I'm sure that affected the mats because that was one of the first things that I saw.
They iced them down. They would water them and ice them and stuff. And yeah.
Thank God, man. I'll tell you this. When we had a tarp, we had to figure that into the equation. And we were just like, bro, these people aren't going to be able to even just like be okay unless we completely,
Yeah, for sure.
But I've also been to a couple MMA organizations out here where it would be sunlight hitting down and then they didn't ice them down.
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
It was
burned.
So how
did pulling guard?
How did the first fight go? Did that start? Where did that go?
Submitted him in like a minute or 30 seconds or something like that. Yeah, I tapped him pretty fast.
So I'm curious about this because, for someone who starts off in a different sport entirely between football and even baseball, was competing in mixed martial arts ever really on your palate or your plate? Because there has to be a want to getting to go there and do that.
Yeah, not until I got older, really, until I pretty much. It was like always a passion, but it was just never something like, I don't even know how to explain it. Not something I thought I would do as a career. That was the thing, and then it just kind of ended up being a career.
Okay, that makes sense. Did you like when you were telling somebody, like, who was the first person you told that you wanted to fight MMA?
Who was the first person I watched?
Or you told that you were going to fight MMA?
Oh, I told my dad. I was not going to tell my mom. My mom probably didn't. I don't. She still doesn't even go to my fights, so I'm not telling my mom. But yeah, I told my dad.
And what was his reaction to that?
He was kind of down for it because he likes that stuff. He's not. Yeah, he was down for it. We used to watch Hoist Gracie and Ken Shamrock fight when I was a little kid, and he loves that stuff. So yeah.
That's really cool. Does your dad train?
No, he doesn't. I think he would if he could, but he works and then he's kind of, his body's a little broken down. So
Right. No, but I mean, hey, dude, a lot of people don't always have that element of support from people who aren't practitioners. Normally, guys who get that sort of bad vibe of, yeah, you can do this, or I really endorse this, tend to be more into competing themselves or have done it themselves. They usually know. So the fact that he's not a practitioner and he endorses that much, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he puts a lot of effort into the sport, which is cool.
So you eventually have to tell your mom, though. How does that come?
I did. It was weird because she just didn't believe me until I actually fought. She thought I was joking. I'm pretty sure she did. And I just ended up fighting.
There was a time when I used to compete in speech and debate, and my parents were like, "Why are you wasting your time?" And they weren't like super into it. And then I came home and I basically started bringing trophies, and they kept noticing. They're like, "You keep winning, man. We've always loved you doing this." And I'm like, "Yeah, you love me now because I win at it." I'm pretty sure when your mom sees you rack up these victories, though, there's got to be some softening toward that.
Yeah. Not really. She just doesn't want to see me get hit, which I understand. I don't want to get hit, but
yeah, I think the unfortunate part to tell the family members is if you're doing your job well, you're probably not going to get hit all that much.
Yeah,
it's ideal.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't happen all the time. But here's the good news: you have a good, well-rounded game. And you were mentioning this when I asked you about your dad, but you thought I was asking you who was one of the first people you watched in MMA. But I'll ask that now. Who were the people that you saw that motivated you, that made you say, like, oh, I kind of understand more about mixed martial arts, who are fighters or jiu-jitsu practitioners?
Yeah, I would say probably Uriah Faber. I think he was definitely my biggest one. And then I saw Nate fight in WEC. I forgot who he fought, but he fought someone. I'm pretty sure. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I saw Nick Diaz fight in Strikeforce. That's what I saw. And then after that, I was like, I just wanted to be a fighter.
That's crazy. And it's pretty cool that you end up with Nate.
Yeah, him being my role model. Yeah, he was like the dude I looked up to for a while, and having him be we're training partners and homies, so it's kind of cool having that.
That's pretty dope, dude. So what other things have you been looking at in terms of the competition and wanting to get out there? Like, what are some of the things that you've been looking to get on? Because obviously Submission Underground's great, and obviously COVID being what it is. But when the world starts to become a little bit more normalized, where do you see yourself wanting to compete and go to? Both. Let's start with jiu-jitsu. Where would you like to compete in jiu-jitsu on?
Jiu-jitsu wise, I don't know. I'm going to do all the trials. Like, I already got my plans to go to Europe and Asia and all them for the ADCC trials. But for fighting, I wanted to go to Japan. And I don't know really how the jiu-jitsu is out there, but that was like my thing. I'm like, I want to go here, and here to go fight. But I saw that ADCC is doing all these trials, so I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna hop on all those. Might as well.
Have you watched a number of ADCCs?
Yeah, I competed in it. I made it all the way to the semis, I think, or the quarterfinals of one of the trials, but I lost like by referee decision, or it was like 2-2 or something, and I didn't get my points for my takedown. It was the most BS thing ever, but I lost it. I mean, I lost to a good black belt. I think he just won Worlds this year, but I lost to him. It was so dumb.
Yeah, I tend to watch all of these. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's very possible I saw that match. It's starting to kind of re-prompt me to go back to it. Was that the East Coast or the West Coast trials?
West Coast.
West Coast. Okay, you were down here.
Martinez, yeah.
Well, let's talk about this then. You've been looking at competing at ADCC. You already have trials in mind. That's pretty cool, dude. That's a great goal to want and to have. You're already looking for it to be this. That's obviously a good opportunity right there. You had to choose, though. Would you go more towards doing like the ADCC, or if they offer a fight? Because that's the only thing that's tricky about this.
Oh, I'm taking the fight 10 times out of 10, but I'm gonna do ADCC just to stay in shape and just to keep doing my thing. But I mean, that's the most prestigious tournament in my opinion. That's bigger than any world tournament is ADCC. It's the hardest one. It's the Olympics, you know. So that's my opinion.
That's cool. And I've also seen you compete at some IBJJF, right?
Yeah, I made it to. Dude, I lost another freaking referee's decision in the semifinals and took third. It was such BS. That I like IBJJF, but they have some definitely favoritism, not towards American people. So it was stupid.
I mean, do you just go by Nicholas Maximov on there when you compete for IBJJF? Ivan? Because I think the key is to add as many names as possible.
I'm going to start making that name.
Absolutely. Because if you look at the people who, if they're looking between a judge's decision, sometimes you see the referee do one of those.
The bigger name?
I can't read that name all the way. I think he won. He's more Brazilian. There you go, bud.
I totally agree, dude. It's that's funny you said that. I'm on the same page as you.
I think it's unfortunate, but I would like to maybe get to an understanding of. I think one reason that may not favor somebody who's got a wrestling background is there's going to be a lot of aggression. So if I'm guessing, and I could be wrong here, it might seem like you're pushing the action and that you don't get the ref call as a result of it. Would that be leading the witness here?
More or less, for sure. I feel like I do everything in the match and still lost.
If there is a way that you would think is a better evaluation for jiu-jitsu practicing in terms of competing to be, what do you think that would be?
I think it should be we all should have one rule set and one idea of how you win. And I think that's how it should be. There's too many point systems and rule sets. There should just be one rule set. Or maybe two, submission only and non-submission only. But those two each have the same points, rules, everything. It's too confusing doing all this other stuff.
Obviously that's got to be a benefit of competing at Chalsonen's, Submission Underground, which is that it is submission only. So that's got to be good to just know that you're going to live and die by that.
Yeah, because I just try to tap people out all the time anyway, so I don't even look at the points. Typically, I try to just go for submissions, but a lot of people love winning world titles off like a referee's decision or something, or, it's like, I don't know, that's not how I'd want to win. So
yeah, no, I get it. If I have a favorite, it's always I like to see submission only. The only problem is I'm also a fan of no time limit, but people don't have time for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can just fast forward to the end though.
I mean, I've definitely commentated a handful of sub only matches where I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, today's horoscopes are. And your lucky numbers are 40. Oh, nope, you got to sweep. Doesn't matter. We're still going to be here for another 10 minutes. I understand that's something that you got to go through, but I appreciate that. Do you feel, though, with the 5 minutes, is that enough time? Because obviously you got it done fairly quickly, but my concern is when it's somebody like Wagner and Craig, I'm always like, fuck, 5 minutes doesn't seem like enough time.
Yeah. It could go either way. I think 5 minutes can create a lot of action, but also might be a little too short of time. For maybe those guys, maybe like 10 minutes, but 10 minutes is a long time too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe not long enough for Wagner and Craig. They're beasts, Well,
you also, and we could come back to them in a second, but I'm curious, somebody with your wrestling background, is there anything that you think that we get wrestling would benefit us in jiu-jitsu?
Just more takedowns. But everyone pulls guard nowadays, so it won't even matter.
Yeah, no. That's the hardest part is I feel like in jiu-jitsu, and I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why Diaz is pretty happy to have somebody like you there, is if you're going to go and continue pushing that action, and I'm sure you're really good at keeping them honest on takedowns.
Yeah, I try to. It's his wrestling's looked sharp in his last couple fight. Well, against Pettis it did,
So, oh man, that Pettis fight was great. Is it hard?
Good fight.
Well, let me ask this as well, because when you're on their team, if he's somebody that you grew up loving watching fight, is it hard to maintain that activity, or just that man, he's fighting, I'm so yoked just for him to fight, let alone to be as part of the team?
Yeah, I'm happy every time he fights. Even if I wasn't on his team, I would still just be happy to watch him fight. He's a great fighter to watch. So it's like I get nervous. It's surreal, It's just crazy.
Is he coming to your fights? Do you have your team show up and your squad show up?
Yeah. Everyone comes. Everyone's
Can you hear him when you're fighting?
He doesn't talk as much, but I actually can't hear him. Yeah, he just says one word typically, so it's easy to get.
Fair enough. Well, I'm curious, man. I know I asked you on the ADCC side, but for your style, and one thing that makes me happy about what you do is that bringing that wrestling in there with your jiu-jitsu background and your MMA background, I just always feel like there should be more opportunities for you. So pitch us. Is there anybody out there that you see that you want to compete with, or any other organization that we could do? Because
I want to go against Nicky Rodriguez. I want to go against that guy.
Why so?
I mean, because we have the same style, but mine's just better. And he gets all this hype and stuff, and it's like, and I definitely have a better guard game than that guy. He gets all this hype and stuff, and it's just like, I understand why he's accomplished a lot, but it's like scoring 0 points at the ADCC trials isn't impressive to me. Your total amount of points was 0. It's like anybody could have done that. Kudos to him for getting those points, or getting third place. That's cool.
I mean, I'm sure that's got to be extra motivation for you to want to get out there and challenge yourself and get at him. When you see him, though, have you considered are you doing the East Coast trials as well?
I'm going to try. But we're not really the same weight I'm going with him, but I'm definitely like to do a super fight against him.
I mean, what weight are you coming in at?
I'm going to go 215s.
Okay.
Maybe even lower, but we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because all I ever see with that guy is just eating dozens and dozens and dozens of protein per day, and just literally being like, I'm going to go lift, I'm going to do that. And he is getting better, but I could understand, dude, if that is a good challenge for you, it's a lot of action-oriented jiu-jitsu.
I think it'd be action-packed. That's why. I don't think it'd be either nonstop wrestling or grappling, So I think it'd be cool.
That's awesome. Well, let me go ahead and put this to you this way. I want to do a quick pitch for you. I want people to understand that you should be on more things, because I know COVID is a weird bitch right now. But
yeah, it is.
Post that, are you on any other super fights? Do you have anything coming up after this?
I have nothing, so I'm trying to get on everything. I was trying to do the fight to win, but I don't know. I'm going to try to do the combat jiu-jitsu if I can, but I don't know.
That's a tougher one. The combat jiu-jitsu, I don't know how many times they do that weight class is the only thing.
I did a super fight for him once.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was badass, so if I can do it, I can do that.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I know for sure the combat jiu-jitsu likes to rotate them in and out. The only difference being if they've got some people in that weight class. They tend to do a lot of the smaller guys right now for the combat jiu-jitsu style. But yeah, you would be a prime candidate for that. Do you feel that part of that is in maybe learning the secret behind the Stockton slap? Does that become helpful for combat jiu-jitsu?
For combat jiu-jitsu it has. For combat jiu-jitsu it has. But yeah.
Do you end up getting Stockton slapped at any point? Because that's something I'm highly fearful of.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Good for you. Yeah, I'm just curious. So let me try and go ahead and pitch you out to anybody who is at all interested in having a high-profile match. If you guys haven't seen his combat jiu-jitsu match, go watch that. If you haven't seen his Submission Underground match, go see that. The man already here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Nicholas. if you get the opportunity to put him on one of your cards, I think you get a high return on demand. It's action-packed. It's going to be crazy. He's already calling out Nicky Rodriguez, which at a lower weight class is telling you how much this guy wants to get out there and just compete. So, for those of you who are looking for somebody, and I don't understand why Fight to Win wouldn't put you on their card. That's just stupid. But for those of you who are looking to have somebody be good, you want to go with Nick Maximov. Well, hold on. I think we just lost him real quick. We'll pull him back in just a second. But yeah, I mean, it'd be dumb if you were unable to feature this man. Nick Maximov he's a beast, man. So Nick, if you're seeing this and you're seeing me still talk, just go ahead and reuse that link. You can go ahead and come back on that way, and then we can go there in case his phone very possibly might have cut out for a split second. So I'm going to go ahead and just send him a quick note. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. It is always a blast when you guys come in. We have a jam-packed show, as I mentioned before. So, all right. Send him a link back over to this. And then I'm also going to send our next guest a link so that they can join us a little bit later. But yeah, guys, this is going to be a fucking amazing day, just in case you weren't up on it before. Nicholas Maximov telling us a little bit about training with, Nate Diaz, which is pretty dope. A little bit later, we've got Brent Primus coming on the show today. And then we've got a lot of show to talk about, but there's something that's been just at the forefront of my mind that I think is pretty important to talk about. If you guys haven't gotten the opportunity to go and check what is going on with 10th Planet Long Beach, let me just walk you through what's happening with them. It has been an unfortunate amount of circumstance for those folks over there. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. I think it is really important that you guys kind of see this if you haven't. It is one of the most unfortunate things that I think we in Jiu-Jitsu have had to deal with in terms of riots. And I know a lot of times when you see it on TV, it doesn't look like it really affects you. But in this particular case, Rose Gracie went to go visit 10th Planet Long Beach. Now, obviously, you won't be able to hear her because you hear me, but she's clearly devastated by this, as we all are. But when she flips the camera in just a second, I want you to take a look at some of the destruction that happened to 10th Planet Long Beach and understand that whatever looters and rioters are doing at this point, it is truly unfortunate. So this is the gym. You see it burnt down. You see just ashes of what remains of that gym. And it just, it breaks your heart because even if they're not your gym today, they are your gym. And I thank Rose for putting this up there and going to visit. If you're any kind of gym owner, your heart immediately sinks on this. So in the comment section right now, I'm going to go ahead and put some contact information for their GoFundMe. Donna Gonzalez is already taking the lead on putting this up on a GoFundMe. And if you can, I totally understand it. Go ahead and give to them. We've been trying to do this push for small businesses, and it's already a shame with all of the unfortunateness that has been going on with COVID and how many businesses are struggling. But I'll be damned if I understand any part of this. I just don't. What I do know is that the community in times like this can pull together. So if you have the ability to donate to the GoFundMe, please do. And, if you don't even have that ability, and I understand times are tough, at the very least, send some good support, put that out there, because the more good vibes and the more people that we can get continuing to help in this situation, the better we will be for it. But yeah, it's just a terrible situation. We wish our best to Kai and all of the people out that way. I've only known him in person just when I've commentated on his competition and in passing by, and he's always been very nice to me. So it's just terrible. On the same note, though, I would tell you guys that's not the only thing we have to look out for. Because over the weekend, we have the good folks over at Super Rare. And also out here. They're based more on like the Hollywood Strip out this way. The folks over at Super Rare Shop put this up. And this photo, again, this was of looters who came in and stole merchandise over the weekend. We're going to be experiencing an amount of crazy things. And I hope that people don't misconstrue the messaging here. I think they just put up a video here. I haven't even seen this one. So this might be, as you know, people were trying to riot, or people were rioting. I understand that. But as they were coming over to try and loot the place, the folks over at Super Rare Shop said that they saw, or on these cameras, they had people who were trying to re-put the gate up. And they were very touched by that. So to those people, thank you for trying. We get it. And we don't want to conflate the idea. Obviously, it's a terrible time just for a number of things. COVID, injustice in our system. These are all terrible things. This is going to be one that I think we here in Los Angeles are going to be dealing with for a little bit. And it's hard to see. And I think it is necessary to address because we don't want this to happen to our community. So it's my hope that you guys who are able to help out on either of those gyms, that would be wonderfully appreciated if you could. But if you cannot, I totally understand that as well. So anyway, we still have a regular show to get back to. We'll talk a little bit more about it, I think, a little bit later. We have Tobias Baker, who's going to be joining us in just a second. I'm just sending him a note. Feel free to join now. Bam. So he'll be coming on in just a second. Again, I told you guys I would put up the link to donate if you have the opportunity to. So I'm going to make good on that right now. So this is the GoFundMe. I'm going to pin it up to the top of the section in our video here. If you have the means to give, please do. And if you do not, I totally understand. It is a rough time for everybody. So we don't expect you guys to be just flushed with cash. But that is at the top. It is the Rebuild 10th Planet Long Beach, and that is organized by our good friend Donna Gonzalez. Thank you so much for doing that, Donna. That's really, really nice. All right. Let me go ahead and bring on in a minute Tobias when he joins us. I'm excited to talk about his also great day at the Submission Underground. But until he shows up, I want to go ahead and point you guys out. If you're not listening to us on any one of these platforms, meaning YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, and the rest. There's one more. I think it's Twitch. Did I say Twitch? I don't know. But it's at Grappling Hour on all of those. Feel free to follow us there. Feel free to send us notes. We're always trying to keep a good look. And we are continuing a series called #Save Jiu-Jitsu Gyms. So if you have a gym that needs to be featured on that, please get in touch with us. I have a feeling as a result of the increased rioting or the looting, we will have more people who are going to be in need, as we saw today with 10 Planets. So please don't be afraid to get in touch with me. I can't promise you I can do everything, but I will do my best to give my time and interview as many people as possible to give them an amplified forum to talk about what's going on. All right. Well, we're going to see Tobias probably in a couple minutes. But in the meantime, I'll tell you guys about one of the things that I have seen, which is yesterday we did a fight companion. We had a blast doing it. I want to send a big shout out to our good friend Kevin Bradley over at the Jiu-Jitsu Times for joining me yesterday for some beers and cheers as we were watching Submission Underground 14. And of course, that's where we saw everybody who's on today's show, a great extension of those good folks who did amazing, dude. I mean, that event flew by in 2 hours. They had what? I think maybe 10 matches in the period of 2 hours. I mean, a lot of that credit goes to the athletes who were able to just beast their way through that competition. It was something to behold. Watching them get in there and put on a great show at a very weird time. It's the second one that we've done since COVID. And it looks like they're going to do another one on June 21st. They're going to have Submission Underground 15. Now, this one, I believe, is also going to be on Sug Island. It is, it's going to have a 16-man tournament where the winner is going to get a crack at Craig Jones. So not only do they get 10 grand, but then they get the opportunity to face the franchise of Submission Underground, one Craigathy Jones. And I do believe this week on Verbal Tap, we will have Craig joining us as well on there. I do see Tobias in the room. I do not see his camera. So if you hear me, Tobias, just know I just need to be able to see your camera turned on, and then we can go ahead and slot you in. So that's what I got for you guys. Action-packed day. Tons and tons more to come a little bit later at 3 p.m. Best Coast time, or at least within an hour for those of you watching in different time zones. We will be joined by one Brent Primus. Right now, however, we're going to bring on Tobias. He's somebody who also impressed us yesterday at Submission Underground. He's a beast. And I have a lot of questions about his apparel. Why don't we go ahead and bring on Tobias Barker. Tobias, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Am I a little choppy? Because I'm hearing you a little choppy.
You're hearing me a little choppy? Yeah. You're okay. You might be on like a second delay.
Well, I'm doing good. That's for sure.
Tobias, do you happen to be on a wireless connection over there?
Come again?
Do you happen to be on a wireless connection by any chance?
I'm on my my phone.
Okay.
Hooked up to the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Could be the phone, could be the Wi-Fi. I'm not really sure at the moment. So we'll try and do this for a little bit. If worst case scenario, good. I think he's just making a quick adjustment on his side. Hopefully we should be able to remedy that in just a moment. Hey, Tobias, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you exit the room and re-enter it, and let's see if that might be able to fix something, okay? All right. So just rejoin the room. All right, sent him a note to go ahead and come back and rejoin the room. We're going to keep a lookout for him. Hopefully we're able to go ahead and modify that. If not, we'll be able to work around it, I'm sure. Anyway, as we were saying, if you guys get the chance in our comment section, go ahead and find. It's very easy to find on there. We have a little GoFundMe for the good folks over at 10th Planet Long Beach. They unfortunately had their gym tarnished, burned down. So we want to do our best to make sure that they are taken care of. It's a GoFundMe. If you've got some means to help them out, by all means, we would love it if you did. If you don't, totally understand. I see Tobias is in the room, so I think he's just got to turn on his camera, and then we will go from there. All right, Tobias, let's try this one more again. I see you in the bottom of the screen, and now you just popped up. How about now? Do I sound a little bit better?
You sound great, actually. Way smoother without Wi-Fi.
It's the Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Oh, am I choppy? Yeah.
I'm not sure that's coming through on my side, my friend. just going to see what the stream looks like real quick just to make sure. All right.
Any luck?
I think you're coming through a little bit stronger now. I'm going to ask you a quick question. Tell me a little bit about what you were wearing yesterday, because I thought I saw straps. Was I crazy?
No, actually, what it was the virus gear that I had on. So the virus gear without all the logos comes like that, and it's the design of their thermal wear. And I saw it and I really liked it. It kind of gave me like an X-Men vibe. Um, I just love the way that, that it looked. So that was with the pair that I went with for this competition.
So the thing that just so you understand where I was coming from, I was watching it live, and as I saw it, it was bugging me because, yeah, I got the X-Men vibe real quick too. I was like, what does he think he is, Cyclops? Jesus, kid. But then maybe about a minute later, I was like, is that like his logos didn't come in time? And it was just bugging me. And then I saw it and I go, no, I think that's the actual design. And it does look cool. But I think it took for me to see Maximov a little bit later wearing it to go with a different shirt. And I said, oh, no, that's just the design. Okay, that makes sense. But I was literally like just glued there because for a split second, and I don't think you're a pro wrestling fan, I won't make that assumption, but it reminded me of members of the Shield who wear like almost like body armor. And I was like, is he coming down to the cage wearing body armor here? Like, what's happening?
Hey, you gotta stay safe at all times, right?
Absolutely. Well, Tobias, how did you get on this card?
So it's a funny story, actually. I have to give the credit to one of my best friends and training partners, Raymond Hill. So we were sitting in the car and we were actually watching the event, and I had messaged Heather right after the event because Ray goes, man, you should be on there, man. I think you're a good enough grappler to be on there. And I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna leave that to the black belts. And then after I seen Charlie beat my teammate Jake Smith, I really wanted to go back in there and I really wanted to avenge that loss. And yeah, and it was my first time representing American Top Team. And Heather messaged me and I answered back right on the spot, which kind of came to bite me later because, got to make sure I'm letting all of my coaches know about things that I accept and everything. So it was an interesting experience.
Oh no. So were they upset with you for taking it?
No, it was just kind of early in my transition.
Gotcha.
Being with the gym for about 2 months, and I wasn't really sure on who to talk to about that. So, it being a grappling competition, obviously it wouldn't be like me taking a fight or anything like that. But when it comes to grappling, it's a little more lax, but I definitely took it very serious though in my training.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, obviously I can understand that. Most people just tend to wonder like, oh, I don't see the harm in it. But, obviously, like you mentioned, if you're coming to a new team, there might be a system. They might actually try to guide you to get the best fight possible or the best matchup possible. So they might also be looking at it from protecting not just their interest or their namesake, but also to protect the fighter.
I apologize for cutting out.
You're good. So let me ask this. If you were on the Wi-Fi, do you mind if we try it without the Wi-Fi?
I did that before, and then you lost me completely.
Got it. Okay. Well, you just came back, so we're just going to work through this.
I think it's okay right now.
Okay, so walk me through how you ended up winning yesterday, sir.
All right. So my strategy going in was pretty simple. I'm a pressure fighter and a pressure grappler. Everything I do, um, I bring energy, and I like to make sure that I'm staying in a safe and dominant and keeping control position. I'm going to do the same that I always do. I'm going to come in and I'm going to try to control the pace and control where it's going. And then I wasn't sure if we were going to make it out of the 5 minutes, just because he was a game opponent per belt, and he obviously took out one of our American top team guys. Belter, really good guy. So he's a great grappler overall. And then going into it, I was actually the underdog, and I knew that when we made it to overtime, that if I went with the armbar, I could get the tap, but I never actually drilled that in training. So I might have drilled the armbar overtime a couple of times, but I was mostly training a lot of the back position. So frankly, it was pretty when I pulled off bar to get the win. But I'm no stranger to arm bars, as I've hit one in some of my MMA as well.
That's cool. I'm going to want to go ahead and talk about that in a second, but you mentioned that you were out there to avenge, which I thought was pretty dope as well. Like, obviously, you got that as a nice thing there, but that avenge means that you also studied Charlie's game before. And I know Charlie, we interviewed him last go round. Super nice guy. I love him a lot. But that consistency, like that you had to finish, was very impressive. What do you attribute to being able to pull that off?
I lost you at experience.
Oh, I was just saying, what do you attribute to being able to finish that? Because you mentioned you're a stranger to arm bars, and obviously you get them as great finishes in your MMA fights. But what do you attribute as the difference maker?
So for me, I've always been a heavy grappler. I was a wrestler in high school. Won a state championship. I wrestled a little bit in college. I trained for about a year and a half. Still wrestling, in the room. And one of the things that I really attribute it to is that, I had 2 years prior at my old gym, Art of War, that I just actually made the transition from. Um, I attest that to my training partner being a brown belt under Jason Giordano. I managed to make it to blue belt Giordano. So I've been able to rack up that experience in the 2 years that I've jiu-jitsu full time. But
Nice.
like it's overall been a the making from grappling from my younger.
That makes sense. Well, let's talk about this. If you had been given a post-fight speech, which they didn't give you, who would you have liked to have thanked, and who would you have liked to have done?
So you said, who would I like to thank?
Who would you have liked to have thanked, and who would you have liked to have, given a shout out to?
Oh, well, during that, I wanted to shout out, American Top Team, obviously, and Dodge Sports. But I was wishing a happy birthday to a couple of friends of mine and a family. I actually have So I get them something nice, because the life of a fighter is the most until you get the big show. So I figured that'd be a nice gift.
Well, that's very nice of you. That's pretty dope. Let me ask this. Let me go ahead and backtrack here. You said that you started wrestling first. Did you do wrestling before jiu-jitsu?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Can you talk us through when you started wrestling?
Yes, I did.
So when did you start wrestling?
Did I freeze up?
Yeah, I think you did. So I was asking, could you tell us about when you started wrestling?
I'm still with you.
Gotcha. All right, here's what we're gonna do. So
I
Tobias,
started wrestling in middle school.
in middle school. Okay. So here's what I think we need to do. I think we might need to put a pin in this one and maybe try up a different connection of some sort, or maybe reschedule. Just because I think the internet connection you have is pretty it's pretty low, and I don't know if maybe somebody else has a phone that you could borrow or something like that. But like we are on a severe lag.
Yeah, maybe it's just the spot in the room.
Could be. I know that sometimes the closer you are to the wireless connection, the faster it goes. But I'm actually dialed in, so I'm pretty confident on my side we're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Let me just go down. I'm gonna have to go downstairs real quick.
Okay. While Tobias makes his way downstairs, I'm just going to remind you guys, if you hadn't had the opportunity to go ahead and give us a follow, do so at Grappling Hour on all major platforms. That's YouTube, that's Facebook, that's Twitter. We're on there too. That is Twitch, that is Periscope, and the rest. Give us a follow. We have interviews coming up all day long. We're always trying to do our best to give prominent spots to everybody in the jiu-jitsu community, so that we hope you guys are being plugged in. We also want to encourage you guys to check out the link in our comment section to donating to all of the folks at 10th Planet Long Beach. I think Tobias just made his way downstairs, and already I think I see a difference in his connection. Tobias, can you hear me now?
Is this better?
I might be. I'm not quite sure. Do you mind telling us? We were asking. So you got started in middle school. What made you start to get into wrestling?
So I was 13. I had just moved to North Carolina to live with my older brother, who was in the military. And then after that, I got wrestling there after getting into some trouble a couple times, and kind of just was interested in you. And then from there, I went like 12-1, I think, in middle school, because I went and wrestled in the area, because there was a popular thing in the middle schools in North Carolina, which wasn't as popular in Florida or some states for the most part, to have wrestling in middle school programs. So I felt pretty lucky to be able to experience that. And then when I moved back to Florida, that's where I continued wrestling in high school, just my luck, the offensive line coach my freshman year of football was the wrestling coach. So before you knew it, I was already drawn into the wrestling program. You know, it took me pretty far.
That's pretty dope. What did he say to you to try and get you to come?
So my first wrestling coach, because I had two main head wrestling coaches in high school. It was his name was Ron Jones, an amazing guy. He wrestled at the Olympic trials. Just one of the nicest guys I've ever met. But his attitude towards wrestling was that old nitty gritty Dan Gable Iowa Hawkeye style wrestling. And he was that kind of coach, man. Nice, really nice Christian guy. Really good beliefs. He had a ranch, you know, and he said this to me. He said, you know, once you've wrestled, else is gonna, you know, that's the most popular thing, obviously, you know. But he was saying this to a bunch of freshman ball players, right? So what he did was, his approach was, you guys are gonna get better at football if you wrestle, you know. And I think there's so many players in the NFL that could attest to that. After they did the drills that you do in wrestling, the double legs, the head position, they see improvements in other areas of the physicality of football. So I really wanted to play football in college, and that's where he gave me the opportunity to just, like, you know, get better at football and, you know, get better conditioning, be in better shape than the rest of these guys. Well, little did I know how tough wrestling was actually going to be. But yeah, he's a real good guy.
That's pretty impressive, man. Did you at any point conflicted on which way to go? Because obviously it's nice if he brings you to the wrestling room to be a wrestler, but then it's kind of like, oh, no, but come back to football.
Mm-hmm. So come again at the end there.
Was it a conflict?
Between
was it difficult to balance those two? Did they try to drag you one way or then the other?
Oh. Yes. So the only conflict was the coaches, actually. So the football coach actually didn't like the wrestlers going and doing wrestling, or the football players getting recruited to wrestle, because he's worried we'd get hurt in our off season. He was worried that we're missing workouts and summer workouts and getting bigger, and it's a whole different experience. And for me, it didn't matter either way, because when you start wrestling, you don't just lose weight on purpose. It's such a physical sport that you just started losing the weight that your body doesn't need. But you know, that was the only conflict I really had between the two. Other than that, you know, the sports go hand in hand. Wrestling will just make you a better football player overall.
That makes sense.
And,
now,
yeah.
I was going to ask you, how do you make the transition to jiu-jitsu? So you do wrestling first. How do you go to jiu-jitsu?
So jiu-jitsu is always kind of in the background of wrestling. I actually was always doing some form of jiu-jitsu with my brothers or my family members, because we'd always just scrap out in the front yard or in the backyard. And I think from my natural ability to be scrappy and have that sense of urgency in an altercation, in just life. And I used that when I got to wrestling, and then something I used it in jiu-jitsu, because I wanted to see what the other side was like. Because I feel like they're kind of polar opposite, but they go together.
Absolutely. Do you remember your first just jiu-jitsu class though?
So my first official jiu-jitsu class was probably, I want to say roughly around the same time as college career was kind of taking place. I think it was at a Carlson Great. Actually, no. Actually, I did attend a school in Gorda, Florida, with my uncle David, actually, and it was only one class, but that was the first time I'd ever done EG. It was very orthodox for me, for sure, because there's a lot of cues that people miss out on if you don't know. And everywhere has their own different philosophy with like bowing into the mat, how you respect the mat. A lot of different lineages, and professors have their different ways that they handle that. So it was definitely kind of a awkward experience, but once I got to the live roles, it was incredible.
What was the first submission that you remember really feeling you had a mastery of?
I'd probably say the guillotine.
Nice. How did you develop that over time?
Surprisingly enough.
Did you happen to catch it? I was asking, how did you develop that?
But there's probably no such thing as really mastering it.
So, Tobias, I'm curious about this. When did you start to fall in love with jiu-jitsu? Because obviously there becomes a point when this becomes something you do more than wrestling.
Just the end.
So when do you fall in love with jiu-jitsu?
I truly want to say when I was training at Carlson, the Carlson Great, my old MMA academy in North Dakota, training at Calavera martial arts. They had a really good group of guys that were always coming in, and the camaraderie was really nice and welcoming. And I remember my old team captain when I was at Miami State, the Beavers, was actually I believe he was a purple belt when we knew each other in college. And then he'd been training jiu-jitsu, stuff, and one time after practice, just joking around and thinking that, I'd be able to maybe, get him. I was a little bigger than John, And they actually have their own gym now. Him and his brother Marcus, John Wilson and Marcus Wilson, have Wilson Bros Grappling. They have their own gym out in Colorado. So I'd drop that in there. And he choked me out with a triangle choke in like, I don't know, I think it was like 30 seconds. And that's when I knew that I needed to do jiu-jitsu, because I had no idea going into that I was in a way in a situation that I thought I would be okay, if that makes sense. And then I knew that I needed to figure this sport out, and that there was more to grappling than wrestling was giving me.
Mm. That makes more sense. Okay. I kind of appreciate that. So how long have you been training now?
So in total for MMA and jiu-jitsu full time, where I'm not just, hitting a class here or hitting a class there every couple months, I want to say two, and I'm coming up on the anniversary. This month was 1 year of being a pro.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your MMA fight.
MMA fight.
Where does your MMA career begin?
You said where?
Yeah, like when does your MMA career begin?
I mean, it began with me making my fight after about 2 months of training, 3 months, and I just wanted to throw down. Much about striking, but I two killers at the time. My training partner was Raymond Hill and Adam Fugit. Both of them had been in the MMA community. So the fact that I just got, one-on-one training with them every day for those 2 months, I'm a very quick learner and I adapt really fast. And I think that was what that first MMA fight and just has kind of grown me throughout my career. Is I've just kept adapting and adapting and adapting and watching. I'm watching everybody else, and I've really been how I've gotten to where I'm at, and kind of where I started just paying attention to what everybody else was doing, but in a way where I'm not trying to be. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always stuck.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, what do you have that you're looking forward to now? Like, what is next in terms of super fights or MMA fights?
On my question.
What's coming up next for you? Hey, Tobias, I was asking what's coming up next for you. So I was asking what is coming up next for you?
Well, after after the event, I obviously talked to my manager, and you know, we had a good talk. Said hi to Beyonce, and just got to talk about them, and talk about hopefully competing on Sug is going to help open up more on us, and we're really looking to make some deep plunges, because if things don't start opening up, a lot of fighters are getting antsy, and myself being one of them. That's why I competed on Sug. Because it's nice to stay busy, but it's just not the same. And I'm really hoping that one of these promotions like Titan FC and LFA, and I hope some of these shows start coming back so that we can get some regional fighters who might not want to step into the UFC right this moment, because they'd like time to develop and hone their skills. Some of these younger guys like myself, who are just trying to grow and adapt, and I want to hone my craft more, and dominate regionally, and then make my way to the UFC. So I'm just hoping that one of these promotions hurries up and got.
Well, it's good stuff, dude. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a pin on this one for today, Tobias, but I would love an opportunity to try and do an interview with you when we have a full connection going up. That's a little bit stronger, so that way I don't lose you as much, because there's a lot I'd love to ask you about.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on for as long as you did, dealing with this connection. I really look forward to it. So you just let me know. We'll work it out.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Your winner from yesterday, Tobias Baker. Sorry, I was going to call Barker. Tobias Baker. Thank you very much for your time, sir. All right, everybody. We continue on right now. My apologies. We did our best to work through some of those technical difficulties. We will be happy to have Tobias on at a different time. There's a lot that we can go ahead and celebrate, especially with this. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this real quick, because this is something that I think you should be able to see. I know the connection sucks, so you can get off me for that. But if you take a look at Tobias's social media, you will be able to see why he had one of those cool moments from yesterday's show. For example, if I pull this up right now, this was the finish from yesterday's submission underground as they got over to overtime. So it says hashtag heathen as fuck. So there is that. He's talking about this armbar, and this X that he has on there, like the X-Man, is no joke. And as he's continuing to circle for that underhook underneath the leg, which really does help you, he's starting to try and pump down, and he's able to widget that kind of arm open again. It'll replay in just a second. Now, just to reframe how this is, Charlie Gilpin is no slouch, man. He is a very tough competitor. He basically, if they make it to overtime, you have to give credit where credit is due. So now as they continue to go through this and we see the replay of it one more time, the underhook of the leg is something that's really, really good and helpful here. And he still has the right arm all the way through. Now, here is where the break is about to happen. You're going to see him pump the legs one more time, and in doing so with the cup leg, he's able to still get the submission, which I think was pretty dope. So we want to give a big shout out to the Heathen MMA. That is Tobias Barker, American Top Team Portland. I know he's got some of those folks out that way who do it. I mean, look at this, dude. Look at his transformation. He used to weigh 245 pounds. Jesus. And now he's at 205. I can't even imagine that. Good for him, dude. Anyway, that's what we got. My thanks to him on his side. We will be talking in a few minutes with one Brent Primus. So keep a lock on that. I am happy to be able to talk with him in a few minutes. We're happy that you guys are joining us. It is going to be a fun afternoon still for us. So you don't want to go anywhere. We do want to go ahead and bring up a couple things that I know we talked about earlier, but I think that's really important to go ahead and make sure that everybody has seen. If you have not seen it yet, I do have some good news, at least on one side, for those of you who wanted an update on this. But let's replay this right now for those of you who did not get the opportunity to see it earlier. This was Rose Gracie. She went ahead to 10th Planet Long Beach and documented the destruction out of that gym. And my apologies if you have seen this. I just think it's something that is pretty necessary for people to take a look at. This again out in Long Beach, just terrible to see. Your heart hurts for these folks. And, it's one of the few 10th planets I haven't been able to visit. It is, you see the vending machine over there. You see, obviously, the punching bags, the debris, all of that sort of stuff. And, you understand it is a very, very difficult time for a number of people for a number of reasons, but there really is no excuse for this. And it's one that I show you guys because I feel we're at a weird place with jiu-jitsu at this moment where more and more people are arguing online over things that are understandably terrible at the moment, but it really does bring in perspective, like for all of us who are in the jiu-jitsu community, to see something like this and look around and be like, listen, I don't care where you stand, where you fall. This is something that we need to go ahead and do our best to try and help out those people. Before we bring Brent on, I did want to show you guys this as a quick little update, which is, I didn't know that this was the case, but just to show you maybe a little bit of good in the community and maybe just to feel like, hey, not everybody's a complete shitbag right now, is look at this. I'm going to pop this back up right now. 10th Planet Long Beach fundraiser has already raised $22,000 of their $20,000 goal. That has happened in just a few hours. So that's 390 people who came together to donate. Our thanks to everybody there. I'm not part of that gym. I got a note saying I feel very sorry for your gym. Thank you. I will pass that on. But I think it's important that when something big like this happens, doesn't matter whose gym it is, it should be more of this. So my thanks to everybody who has gone out of their way to donate for them. I don't think that means they're out of the woods yet, but if you were looking for some good news today, there's that. We still encourage you guys to continue donating and doing your part, but thank you very much. All right, let's get on to other matters over here. Let's talk about somebody who had a pretty good day at Jiu-Jitsu yesterday. The gentleman who's coming up next on our show, man, I mean, he had not only a good match, he had not only a good show, but he was somebody who we've had our eye on. We've seen him compete. I'll admit to him freely every time I see his name, and I think this follows him everywhere. I always think of the band Primus, so it's always hard for me. I wonder if he grew up with that. I'm sure he did. I mean, as a guy who grew up with the name Raphael, I got Ninja Turtle every day of my life, so I understand what it's like with that. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you how happy we are to welcome one Brent Primus to the show. Brent, how you doing, sir?
Good. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Congratulations on your win yesterday. How do you feel?
Thank you. I feel great. It was fun. Had a blast. It was kind of cool competing against Jake Shields. You know, I looked up to that guy and watched him fight for a long time, so that was pretty cool.
How did that come together? Because I know it wasn't necessarily the first match that was going to happen for him, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to fight or had a match with Michael Kessa, and then I'm not exactly sure what happened. He just either got injured or got lined up with a fight. That's what I was thinking, so I didn't really say why. And then I got a call saying, Kessa's out. You're going against Jake Shields. And I was like, all right, that's cool, I guess, you know. But yeah, it was cool, man. I think Jake's definitely a more technical of a grappler than Kessa, but Kessa would have had his own troubles. I think or he has his own game that would have been difficult in his own way or whatever. But man, it was cool, man. It was awesome to get to compete against Jake Shields for sure.
I mean, I'm looking at you, and I saw that you got put as a replacement, and I go, oh, yeah, okay, I'll watch that.
Yeah, for sure.
There are definitely worse ways that could have gone. So there was that. Well, tell me a little bit about the match. Like, what were you expecting Jake to do in terms of game planning?
It honestly went exactly how I imagined, and I've literally been visualizing it over and over for the last like 3 weeks, and it's kind of exactly how I imagined. I wanted to kind of play really smart in the first 5-minute round. I wanted to play really smart, and I didn't want to shoot in and have him get on top of me and stuff like that. And then I also, man, there's a couple times where I had him get to the cage where I was wanting to work my takedowns, and I just kept on in the back of my head thinking that he has a really good guillotine, and I just didn't want to get put in that mess. So I was like, man, I'm just gonna play safe. And I was thinking about pulling like a flying triangle or flying arm bar when there's like 2 minutes in or something like that. But he pulled guard, so I was like, oh, that's cool, man. I can work my top game, and I started working my knee cross pass, and that worked out. I think I passed guard last minute or something like that. And then the overtime rounds, I knew he's gonna go to the back control, and I knew he's gonna have a really solid back control, and he did, man. It felt really, really strong, and I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, I can either, try to get out of this right now and get tired and use a bunch of energy, or I can just let this 2 minutes go out. And I felt really confident in my arm bar, so I just really figured that I was going to catch him with my arm bar, and it went exactly how I planned. So I was wanting him to go first. I was wanting to defend first, so I would have the choice to arm bar him and win it. And exactly how I thought it was going to happen, man. So it was awesome.
I like that you have a preference. You're like, I would like for him to go first. Is there ever any way, especially after the coin flip, you can kind of be like I don't know if there's any strategy to be like, hey, you should go first, bud. Like, wink. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It happened. I was wanting to go first, to defend first, and it happened exactly how I wanted to, man. It couldn't have went better, so it was cool.
I have to ask this because obviously he has a lot of tape available from his MMA fights, and he's starting to build more and more jiu-jitsu highlights in terms of he's competing way more in jiu-jitsu, which is awesome. But for me, and I don't know if this is how you feel, it's still weird to see him playing guard. Like, there's a moment where, as a fan of his, I'm kind of like, oh, right. Yeah, this feels weird for some reason,
Yeah, for sure. I was shocked that he pulled guard on me, honestly. I think he pulled like butterfly, and I got a bunch of training partners that like to play butterfly guard, so I felt really comfortable in that, and especially with my knee cross pass. And but yeah, man, I was definitely shocked that he pulled guard, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, it was cool.
I mean, I'll tell you this, and I try to put myself into these situations when I'm commentating, or, yesterday we had a little fight companion we were doing as we were watching it. And I just seeing you and your size and the way you roll, I was like, I don't know that I want to pull guard immediately. Like, that just feels like a lot of smash to deal with.
Yeah. And it's funny because I play so much guard in the gym and stuff like that. I think because a lot of people just don't want me to play on top of them. I think I pass their guard. Really, I have a good guard pass and everything like that. So usually I'm just like a nice guy, and I just pull a guard on everybody. So lately it's all I do is I sit down on my butt and play my guard. And it was cool to be able to play that my knee cross pass in my top game on Jake, because lately I've been playing my guard. Even in my fights, I've been hitting my what do you call it, the omoplatas and gogoplatas and all that stuff in my guard and everything. So it's cool to be able to show my top game a little bit. And that arm bar that I got, I actually I switched up my arms. I don't know if you guys, I know Chael was talking about it in the interview, but the way I just started practicing that last few weeks, and I can really control their head with my arm, and have my free arms is free by their head, so I can go underneath, and like I did to Jake, I grabbed his wrist, and I put so much pressure on that wrist that it's almost like a wrist lock, and so a lot of people just give me their arm, and it happened just how I've been drilling, and yeah, man, it was sweet.
Well, I was watching yesterday with my friend Kevin Bradley, and we were watching it live, so there is film of us doing this, and there's also, I believe, we gave you a cheers. Normally, we reserve when we have a beer in hand for those who get a submission within regulation. But we thought we'd make an exception for you because I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Like, I had to admit, like, overtime isn't always the most exciting, but I still feel like if you do something that's pretty cool there. Kevin had the observation that it was very similar to when Boogie caught Jake Shields in that kind of overtime sort of thing, where you saw a very similar opening with how you were controlling that arm to begin with. And I thought, as I was watching you do it, I was like, damn, dude, that was a beautiful read. Because for a split second, he thought he might be out.
Yeah. That's when I transitioned to that wrist or whatever, and just put a lot of pressure on his hand. And it worked really well, man. I've been really practicing when they stack me up just to keep my posture really good with my back, so I have room to get that arm extended out. And man, I've been drilling that arm bar like in overtime rounds like crazy the last like 3 weeks, and it went exactly how I planned. So it was beautiful. It was cool. Hopefully I can come back to the SUG and get a top guy again or whatever. It'd be cool to go against one of the guys in the UFC, but I've heard that the UFC doesn't want any of their guys going against any Bellator guys or whatever, but we'll see.
Oh, that's funny. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I hope that's not true. I mean, it could be. I'm not a matchmaker for them. I don't know the particulars, but if that is the actual thing, that's stupid.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I agree.
Because, I mean, here's the weird part. It's just like, if they were smart, you have the ability to brand it as a little bit of, AFC and NFC kind of a thing for submission, because it's not quite MMA. At the same thing, you want to see a Super Bowl. Like, you want to see what that would look like. So I don't know. But let me walk you through this, because you were mentioning it, but I can actually pull up, thanks to the magic of this, we can talk about how you were able to pull this off right here. I don't know if you could see it on your side, but your follow along is beautiful here. And this is where you're talking about the wrist on the inside. The camera angle can't fully see it, but that's what's happening on the other side here.
Yeah, exactly. I pretty much grabbed the 3 or 4 fingers, his pretty much his whole hand right there. And pretty much so much pressure on it. A lot of guys tap from just that alone. And then, but I knew he's either going to tap from that or give me the arm. And it worked out like just how I planned and been training or whatever. And I've been working some of my arm bars with Austin Vanderford, and he's so gosh damn explosive and strong that I that's why I adjusted to this grip and the reverse arm in there. And it was kind of helping with, big, strong, powerful guys like Austin, stuff like that. But still, that guy's a beast. So, I feel like if I can armbar Austin or keep him, somewhat for 2 minutes, that I can pretty much get anybody like that. So, it was cool.
Hey, I got to tell you, man, there's a little bit of jealousy on my part, because I've definitely draped over that right leg over when I'm trying to finish an arm bar, and it does not go as successful for me. But when I saw you put that over, I was like, no, that's pressure, dude. I think he's got this. I thought that was pretty dope. So kudos to you, my man.
Thank you.
So, you mentioned Austin, and what is something that you feel that people who, a lot of these internet guys, we all have our good jokes. He's obviously very popular. What's something that we don't know about him?
About Austin? Damn, I feel like they let their whole life on Instagram. So I think everybody knows everything about him. I feel, but I mean, which you guys probably already know, he's a workhorse. He works really, really hard. He's one of the hardest working guys in the gym, and I think it shows. I know his match didn't go quite like he wanted to yesterday, but it doesn't change anything about how I think about him. Or he's a beast, man. So I know that he'll be back in the gym. Probably he's at the gym right now. Probably, honestly. So, but he'll come back stronger. And obviously Gabriel Checo. I hope I said his name right, but that guy's a beast, man. If he can hold Austin's back like that and get it choked, then hats off to that guy, because then he has a solid back control and back take. So
I'll tell you this much, and I mean, this is something that I picked up, and you could tell me differently, but I just figured that you have the roll and then the back control. That was exhausting, because a lot of people probably would have tapped to a number of the other things that Gabriel was doing, but that you saw Austin doing a good job of 2-on-1ing and like really, really fighting it for a long period of time, that it just felt like toward the end, I felt like his arms were down for a split second too long, and that in between when he recentered himself back into it. And I was just kind of like, sure, but I can't tell how exhausted he is from all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think he got caught from like being exhausted, because Austin has really good cardio. You know, I hardly ever see that guy gassed out. You know, but I think honestly, it's just Checo's, just his technique and his aggressiveness, and man, he was attacking that neck like really aggressive, and he did a good job, man. Like, hats off to that guy. And it's my first time meeting that guy, and he was like super cool, really humble. You know, so yeah, hats off to that guy. He has an awesome attack, and I know Austin will be back, you know, stronger than ever for sure.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, it's a little bit different of being tired in one gym to being tired and having Zangief on your back and trying to do that. It's not quite the same. So it's something that I try to qualify as I make sure people understand, because from my understanding of it is like all the little things that he was doing to keep him safe throughout the other portion of the time can't be overlooked. So that's a high practitioner who does that. Well, sir, let's do a little bit of this. We're going to start here by asking you to say the speech you would have liked to have said, because there are no post-fight interviews, and that always bugs me as a guy who talks to athletes. Who would you have thanked, and who would you have shouted out had they put the mic to you?
I mean, obviously, I would thank Professor Fabiano Schurner, man. He's helped me out so much, and he's like a mentor, kind of like a father figure, man. That guy's awesome, and I respect him so much, and he's helped me out, you know, tremendously with all of his techniques and everything he showed me, and all the guys at American Top Team, and also Professor Ben Baxter at Performance Martial Arts in Eugene. Me and him have went over so many dang arm bar drills and overtime rounds, and I really think that he helped me out a lot, you know, with that. He's a big, strong dude, and man, he's helped me out a lot. So thank you to those, you know, professors and all my training partners. You know, they obviously I wouldn't be who I am without my training partners and everything. And I was wanting to, you know, kind of hang out and thank Jake Shields. You know, it'd been kind of cool to kick it with him, and I was wanting to party with him afterwards, but I messaged him and he didn't get back to me until like I already left or whatever today. But yeah, man, don't really got too many. And Virus, man, they hooked me up with the best shorts and gear and stuff like that for this fight. And yeah, so I think Virus, and yeah. I wasn't really planning on like doing a speech or whatever, because they're like, yeah, you're not gonna say anything. So I was like, all right, that's even better, man. I'm just gonna go in there and grapple and get the hell out of here, you know, and go party. So
well, you did what I think is the right thing to do when you exit, because I've now learned in today's episode, I didn't know this until there, but you know, when we're watching it live, you know, you're commenting and you're looking for the jokes. And one of the jokes I see is it always looks like, you know how they have those translators who do for like the hearing impaired? Yeah. It always looks like they're just kind of like, hey, what's up? I just want to go and tell different people. It's been really cool. And yeah, we're going to do this. And I'm like, I don't understand a word you just said.
Yeah, for sure.
But I have learned that they have been instructed to kind of do something to the camera to kind of vamp or to stall so that it allows Kale to talk over them. But I think you chose the right thing. Did you go for the double guns like that? Did you just be like, is that where the natural ideas to go, or where did you go at the end?
Yeah, I pretty much did like the double guns a little bit. And I know my little boy, he's like almost 3 years old. He was watching me, so I did a little shout out to him. And but yeah, I didn't do too much. They told you like go in the middle and flex, do something kind of crazy for like a few seconds to burn some time. But yeah, I just went there, just did a little flex, and you know, said what's up to my little guy that was watching. But yeah, it was cool.
So you have a son that's 3 years old?
Yeah, he's almost 3. He'll be 3 in August, and I got a little girl who's 8 months old right now, and they are so awesome and fun and the highlight of my life, man. It's pretty cool. My little dude, he's almost 3, like I said, and he's just the funniest little coolest dude ever, man. He's awesome.
Good for you, man. Congrats on that. I just want to say, because you know, I don't always love people who do double guns just because it's easy to make fun of. And granted, you do the work, so you should be able to pose. But I feel like you're somebody who's able to do it for this reason. Just look at this photo and understand that, yeah, you do got a little bit of the He-Man look. Like, I saw that photo and I was immediately like, yeah, you have permission to do double guns because you've actually got muscles. Other people, not so much, bro.
One of the fans said that to me, and I just cracked up. I used to watch He-Man when I was little, you know, every Saturday mornings and stuff like that. So I thought that was hilarious. You know, I was like, I got to repost that or whatever. But Yeah, shout out to that guy. That's cool.
Hey, whoever made that, it's a good use of the internet. I don't always say that with memes, but that's 100% a good use. Let's get into the backstory, dude. Where does jiu-jitsu or a mixed martial arts, where does that begin for you?
Where did I start out, or where's what's going on next?
No. We'll get to the what's next, but I want to go back because this is the first time you and I have had the opportunity to chat. So I always like to do origin story with that. Where does jiu-jitsu or mixed martial arts begin for you?
Man, like I got kicked out of my house when I was really young. I think I was like 13, and I had my own place when I was like around like 14 or 15. I had my own house, and so my house was like the crazy party place. I was literally partying there every single night, and I was getting in a lot of street fights at like college parties and all this stuff. I was getting a lot of fights, and one of my buddies like, man, if you're gonna do that, you might as well make some money. So he signed me up for a cage fight. And so I was like, all right, cool. And then there's like, I think I was like 2 weeks out from the fight. I went to this jiu-jitsu gym, and I totally thought I was going to just beat the crap out of everybody there. And I walked in the gym, and I got choked out and armbarred. And I literally just blew my mind. I was like, man, this is crazy. I'm way stronger, and I think I'm way better an athlete than all these guys. And they're like beating my ass. And so I just totally knew that it was technique and all that stuff. And so I started training full time. I had my own landscaping business at this time. I pretty much sold that, and I was just training full time, and it all kind of went from there, And like I thought MMA was kind of nuts when I first saw it, and once I started doing jiu-jitsu and then started doing boxing and putting it all together and everything, I realized it's a sport, and I just fell in love with it and started training. Like I said, man, like 2-3 times all day long. I was in the gym, so I just totally fell in love with it and caught on to jiu-jitsu so fast. I think I got my blue belt in like 3 weeks. My first gi tournament was the Pan Americans, and I think there's like 170 or 160 people in my division. And my professor at the time was like, man, if you win the Pan Americans, you got your blue belt. And I was like, oh, what? Let's do this. And I think I had like 7 matches, and I won and got my blue belt, and it was awesome. So I was just in love with it. I just totally fell in love with the bowing, the respect, the honor. Like, it was just, everything was for me. I actually watched Hickson's choke video. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Of course.
But I watched that, and that got me, man, I was in love, man. It was my dog's name is actually Hickson. Hickson Gracie is definitely one of my idols, man, for sure.
Have you had the chance to meet him?
Yes, I have met him a couple times. The first time I met him, I was in San Diego training for Worlds. I was over there for like a month or something like that. I was training at Saulo Ribero's gym, and Hickson was there, and I tore my knee. It popped so loud, boom! And I was like, it was the last day of training before Worlds, and it popped so loud, and I was screaming on the ground, and then all of a sudden Hickson comes over and grabs me and takes me to the side, and like literally like boom, Mr. Miyagi'd me, and and started talking to me, and like started rubbing my knee, and I was like, oh man, sweet, this is cool as hell. And that was my first time meeting him. He was like the coolest guy ever, so it was awesome.
It's pretty funny. It's very similar to when I interviewed him, and I told him, I'm like, hey man, I'm going to do 2 interviews, one for print, one for like interview, like a video one. And he's like, cool. So I exhaust him for 2 hours. I interview. Yeah. And then mid-interview, I said, well, what does it feel like to be synonymous with the movement for like yoga and breathing in jiu-jitsu? Because before you, there really wasn't something that was as publicized, but you are very much associated with it. And he looks at me and he just goes, you breathe? And I was like, oh no, like yes, but like the Walmart version of whatever you're doing, bro. I don't have a real version of it. And he's like, okay. He goes, come back and do a private later. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. We literally finished the second part of the interview, and he goes, get on the mats. And I was like, well, text everybody, I love you. I'm probably going to get hurt now. And he comes over and immediately starts doing the Miyagi and is like already just instructing me on how to breathe. And I was like, what? He goes, I just figured we should do it now. And he immediately starts going into a breathing kind of like introduction to how to maintain and control your breathing. And I just was like, I've never had an interview like this. Like, I'm used to people just being like, good day, sir. Thank you. But at the end, it was just because he told me, he's like, I very much respect the way how you interview, and I appreciate you. And I was like, okay, well, It's not going to get cooler than that. So I'm going to retire from interviewing people now.
Yeah, you were lucky, man. That'd be awesome. That's a lifetime experience right there. You know, I think that I would love that. That'd be awesome for sure.
But it's more so like, I think it's because you don't approach it as a fan. Like, you have to approach it from a journalist standpoint of saying like, hey, dude, I do have these questions, and clearly you have something that is an impressive career. But like, if I ask you and geek out on it, it's going to look dumb. But
yeah,
don't get me wrong, you're pretty good at what you do. So we went like that. I want to go ahead and go back on this. Did you do sports? Because again, you look like a pretty in shape guy, and I imagine that's something that was consistent from when you were young. Were you doing other sports before you kind of found your way into mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I played soccer like my whole life. Soccer was my life. I played on like club teams out of season and traveled. And yeah, soccer was my life. I wanted to become a professional soccer player, but in high school, like I said, I got kicked out of my house, and so I had my own house in high school, and I had nobody tell me to go to school, go to classes, do your homework, and I literally just got good grades for soccer season. And then once soccer was over, I just kind of partied, did my own thing and everything. But I played soccer until, you know, every year, all the way till senior year. We won state my senior year, and I think soccer helped me with just like a work ethic and running and all that stuff for sure. But yeah, soccer used to be my passion for sure. And now it's definitely grappling and beating people up, and I wouldn't change it. But definitely, I think it also helped me with my kicks and all that stuff too, you know, playing soccer. And every once in a while, like, I think actually like a few years ago, I got like a soccer team, a city league going on in Eugene. And I had all my buddies going, and I didn't have enough soccer players. So I got like a bunch of my guys that grapple and jiu-jitsu and do MMA, and it was a complete shit show. Like, they were grabbing the soccer ball in the middle of the game and running with it. And I was like, dude, you guys know this is not rugby. I don't know. It was pretty. So next time I'm going to do that, I got to get all soccer players. None of my grappling buddies can play anymore.
Two things on that. One, I grew up playing soccer, and for years I couldn't put on weight, and that would only make me mad because, as I'm sure you know, if you're a stick and someone runs into you in soccer, that's no bueno. Like,
for sure.
If you're durable, cool, but it means they're going to beat you to the ball, and they're going to have a little bit of muscle to kind of push you around.
Yeah.
And so I'd always be like, well, on the split side of that, though, I credit soccer for keeping me in shape for so many years after it, because I wasn't doing as much actively like to do it, but I would eat well. And I was like, my metabolism should make me way fatter, but it's because of soccer that I was looking like a decent person.
Sure.
But I am curious about this, though. So you go from soccer, you make that transition. I love it. I understand it. And I know that at a point you moved out, you're doing your own thing. Where does that motivation come from to want to be better? Because it's one thing if it's MMA, but like, it's got to be a motivation that makes you say like, hey, I've got to stop doing this. Like, I've got to get it together. And does it really come from mixed martial arts, or does it come from you first?
Well, I mean, honestly, like, I got kicked out of my house by my stepdad, and when I was like, 12, 13 years old, and had so much hate and craziness, fire in me. All I want to do is beat him up. That's all I want to do. And I used to do 1,000 pull-ups or 1,000 push-ups and thousands of crunches every single day when I was really, really young, and all I want to do is just go beat up I was like, man, I'm gonna get really strong. I'm gonna go beat his ass, and that's kind of where it started. And then I've always had I was always just think about things that he said and things that's happened, between us, and it would just motivate me and give me fire. And it has always helped me to train like a savage when I feel like whenever I'm tired or I can just think about things that's happened, and it just brings fire in my veins, and it just motivates me, so I think that's definitely what motivated me and helped me fight or whatever. It's just like, just my past. But yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, it was crazy, but honestly, I wouldn't change anything. I'm who I am today because of all that. And yeah, so it was awesome. But definitely high school was a crazy time, man. All I did is just like party, sell a bunch of really, really good marijuana, and yeah, man, just played soccer. It was crazy.
It sounds like you were given a certain kind of card, a hand, if you would, and you were like, no, I'm going to make the most of this. I'm going to figure it out. And man, kudos to you, because that's a real big turnaround. But to even have a business at that young of an age for landscaping, that's still pretty impressive. Like it's a never ending hustle on that. So was the moment that you were selling the landscaping business the moment you said like, nah, this is my career. I'm ready to full time go into this?
Yeah, for sure. I had like an awesome clientele. Like I was making really good money, especially for the age I was doing landscaping. And I just knew that if I put my heart and soul into jiu-jitsu, that I could be somebody or make something out of it, and I just knew that. I just had a feeling, and luckily I did, because, jiu-jitsu has brought me to where I am, and it's given me everything that I have today. And yeah, man, I'm blessed for sure. And I'm so glad that all that crap and craziness has happened to me, because man, it made me the competitor that I am, for sure.
Good for you, man. That's pretty dope to hear. I have to figure this out, because maybe I'm asking selfishly as a jiu-jitsu guy, but I know that when I have hobbyists who do, contract work or are in construction, they're just a pain in the ass. So even when you're telling me you're doing like 1,000 sit-ups, 1,000 crunches, I'm like, which do you credit more? Do you credit that work ethic that gave you the 1,000 crunches and the 1,000 push-ups? Or do you credit the fact that even you were still doing hard labor that just probably made you super tough as nails?
Yeah, I think the combination, for sure. Like when I was doing landscaping, like I would sometimes do like 12-hour days. I'd wake up really, really early and go and start. And I think class started at 6:30, so I would hustle my butt off so I could go to the gym and train. And I would be mowing lawns, digging holes all day long, planting flowers, doing all this stuff. And it helped me. I think I had a little edge on everybody else. Like all the guys going to college, hanging out with their buddies, playing video games, and then going to the gym. And I was out there doing like manual work, and it's hard to build that manual man strength. It really is, and I think just the combination of that, and then just that work ethic of doing, pull-ups and pushes, thousands of them, definitely gave me that edge. And I've always said, like, what you do outside of the gym, away from everybody else, that's what's going to separate you from everybody else. And so I've always tried to, by myself at my house, like every morning, every night, I do thousands of, sit-ups and pull-ups and push-ups. And I think that definitely, separates me from everybody else. And this is what you got to do. You got to do things that other people aren't willing to do, I feel. So that's what it's all about.
Good on you. I'm just letting you know, literally every guy that has come in is like, I do a little bit of construction. I'm like, don't roll with me. Like, it's just, I don't need that in my life, especially even the guys who I'm like, I think I have more technique than them. You just end up being like, you'll do the best armbar in the world, and they'll just be like, nah, bro, I got this. This is literally a day of drywall. Whoop.
Yep, that crazy man strength. There's this guy, speaking of that, there's a guy that I used to train with, the manual, but they call him the manhandler. He's done concrete his whole life, and literally he's not like big and buff, but he's like just so physically strong. Like you say, you can armbar him, he's like, no way, like he's just so strong from doing concrete his whole life. And it's just hard to, get that. It's hard to build that strength, doing anything else besides just man work,
Absolutely. And like one of my friends, he does construction, he does roofs, and there's just this one day where he and I just kept going through different bells. It's like 45 minutes, and then it's just like me and him are just dead afterwards. And he's he looks at me and he goes, dude, you're so much better than me. And I was like, clearly I'm not. I'm really not. We're both here, and this is death. Well, let me ask this, because I'm always curious, like, when do you feel like, what's the first submission that you were like, okay, that's it, I kind of feel I've got this?
Ooh, I think it was my 180 armbar. I think I was a white belt, and I was submitting I just got my blue belt, and I was doing my 180 armbar. And I remember I was sitting in class, and one of the professors, he's like, Brent Primus, yeah, blah, blah, he's a blue belt, but he has a 180 armbar that's a black belt. He throws that 180 armbar like a black belt. I was like, oh, sweet. He even said that I have a 180 arm my arm bar is like a black belt. And so I kind of just like, that was my thing, man. I would go to side control and 180 arm bar everybody. And that was like probably my first, passion and love right there. That 180 arm bar was my jam.
I mean, because already the fact that you were like 3 weeks into your jiu-jitsu journey, you're a blue belt. So you're that mythical unicorn that shows up that gets that.
That's funny.
I'm curious, you mentioned you fell in love right away. I always, as a blanket statement, always ask our guests, like, do you know the exact moment? Because to me, I can remember, being at a 10th planet and visiting there and being like, oh man, this is tough. Like, this is really difficult, but I like it. It's like a crossword puzzle to me. Like, there's obviously a physicality of it, but these guys would compliment me. They'd be like, man, your defense is really good. You don't know what you're doing, but you kind of do. And I was like, yeah, I just kind of reverse engineer what you're doing and stop you from doing that. I don't know what I'm doing other than I don't want this to hurt.
Yeah.
So do you have a moment that you can kind of recall that you were kind of like, yeah, this jiu-jitsu thing's pretty fucking dope?
Yeah. When I had my own house, like we'd get drunk, we drink a bunch of whiskey, like all my buddies. And like every night we'd move the couches and we'd grapple and just beat each other up. We didn't know what we were doing. We just squeezed each other's heads. And I'd win just because I was just stronger and I felt like I tried harder and I'd always win. But I think the moment was when I started training jiu-jitsu for like a couple weeks. I think I was maybe like a week or two I started training. And then I was at my house and we were talking, a bunch of my buddies were over there, we're smoking and drinking or whatever. And we were just talking about how I started doing jiu-jitsu and three of my buddies were like, oh yeah, that shit don't work. There's no way you could get me actually tap me out and that stuff. I was like, okay. So we just, I lived across the street from a school. So I was like, all right, let's go across the street. I'm going to choke all you guys out right now. And we all went across the street and one by one, man, I tapped these dudes out with actual legit moves, and like right then I was like, man, this is so damn awesome. I learned this move like last week and I'm over here just arm barring the crap out of my buddies right now, and I think that was probably the moment where I was like, man, this stuff is 100% legit and it works. And I fell in love with it. That was only like a week or two in. And I was like, man, just imagine what I can do if I actually, train for years or whatever. But that was probably definitely the moment right there when I was like choking out all my buddies in the grass right there. I was like, oh man, this shit works.
I have to give you credit because I've been at house parties where this has happened. I won't say if I was involved or not, but I've seen these things. The fact that you actually had the organization to be like, we're going to move the setting a little bit out there, because most people don't have that much organization. If you're ever at these things, it's usually just right then and there. So to have that there, that's pretty impressive, man. Well, dude, that's so good to hear how that comes here and how that continues to build the foundation to where you go. What was it like when you were first entering Bellator? Like, what was that experience for you personally like? Because that means you're on the come up with some people, and an organization that big is giving you a platform.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was crazy because like when I turned pro, I was already a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And so I had so many fights back out and people, I'd signed a contract and I was getting ready to fight people in like all these local promotions. And I had, man, like probably 10 people back out of fights and I literally just couldn't get a fight at all. And even I think my first pro or one of my first pro or my first two pro fights, I told the promoter to give some of my purse to my opponent to sweeten the deal, to fight me, and I did that I think it was my first two professional fights. I said, give them a percentage to sign the contract. And so anyways, I didn't have anybody that would want to fight me in town. And it was like a year or something like that. And I was like, man, I'm literally just going to give up this MMA and I'm going to start doing jiu-jitsu and just focus on jiu-jitsu and compete in jiu-jitsu. And because I just couldn't get a fight, and then I went up and trained at I think it was like Rose City at the time. And I trained there and they're like, man, don't give up. You're good. We'll have a manager come and look at you or something like that. And they did. They had, Jason House, my manager now, come fly out there, watch me train. And then he had one of the guys from Bellator come and watch me. And I think Dave Jansen had something to do with that too. And they had Bellator came out there and they watched me spar and they signed me when I was 2-0. And I was just like so blessed. I felt so happy. I was like on cloud 9. And that's when it all happened. And so thanks to Bellator for signing me when I was only 2-0.
I mean, it's a good buy-in in terms of both for jiu-jitsu and MMA to have been like 3 weeks in. Yeah, he's a blue belt. 2 fights in, Bellator's like, yeah, I could see this. I mean, it's a testament to what you're doing when you have the spotlight on you. So there is that. I would tell you this, though. I have deep remembrances of watching the Chandler fight and just being like, I couldn't put myself in your shoes. I was watching that leg injury happen, and I was just like, how is this fight still going on? Like, Jesus Christ, like watching him grit through it. And then watching how it was, because I was like, dude, what an amazing moment for you. What did it feel like to win the championship like that?
Oh, it was crazy. It was like, I can't even explain it, man. It was like the best, craziest time in my life. And it wasn't just because of the fight. I think there's a lot of us, just everything that was coming up to the fight, my life in that situation, like I literally was so broke. I had no money in my bank account when I went and fought him. I borrowed money from family members to do that training camp. I literally was negative in my bank account. I was 100% broke. I had no money. I had everybody in the whole world telling me I was going to lose. I had people messaging me every day saying how I'm going to die, and so it was just a crazy time. And when I went there and won, not only did I win, but my money went up. When I did win, I get the win bonus or whatever. And so I just and I had a baby being born in a month or two. And so just the thought of, I'm going to have money in the bank. I'm going to be able to support my family. I'm the world champion, and I just, all that hard work, all that craziness that went in my life, everything, my dad being in prison, not having a dad, being, selling weed, being busted by the cops. It's like all of that stuff, flashed through my head. And it was literally just like an outer body experience almost, is people just don't understand, but it was amazing, and I'll never forget it, especially fighting in Madison Square Garden and being on the same card as Fedor and all these dudes that I've looked up to for so long. It was amazing, freaking amazing.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, like it's so funny because for me personally, when I watch those fights and I see those things, you're not thinking at the time. And I mean, I had a show, but I never thought I would get the chance to interview you. But it is interesting that you kind of watch it and it's like ingrained in my memory too. And I remembered having a visceral, like I was at a bar and I just remembered the guys at the bar yelling at Chandler and being like, just get back in there. And I was like, bro, and like, I'm like sitting down. I was like, hey, can we just talk real quick? That's not fun. Like, I don't know how other way to put it to you. I don't think it's because he's a bitch. I think it's just because, whoa, fuck, dude. Credit to what Red's putting out there. And I mean, it was an amazing moment. And I have to ask this because this is particularly, this is the Grappling Hour. So we always try to ask, even with our MMA fans who have particularly unique things on their record. You have a Gogo Plata finish. Like, in what world did you imagine you would finish a fight via Gogo Plata?
Man, I know everybody says that, and they're like, honestly, to me, I thought it was a matter of time because I get a lot of people in the Gogo Plata all the time. Like, the Uma Plata is like one of my home bases for my guard. I go to the Uma Plata and I get it all the time. And like, I have so many things that branch off of the Uma Plata, and the Gogo Plata is just one of the things that, kind of branches off of that. And so it was just a matter of time before I caught it, and I, in the cage or whatever, or in a tournament. But if all my training partners, if you've trained with me, they all know that the Uma Plata and the Gogo Plata and the Gogo clinch and all that stuff is my bread and butter. So honestly, I was like, I wasn't surprised at all.
Well, I mean, kudos to you, but those are usually the ones that most people undervalue or don't give as much credit to because they just don't get caught with it as much. And that's usually what it comes down to. If you have a proficient person at it, like if you look and you know that their game is very like setup based from whether it's from guard or whether it's from they just recognize how to transition that position really well, then you're just stuck. So that's one of the worst parts about that setup is just having to admit, like, how did we get here? Like record scratch, like you might wonder how I got here. I wondered how I got here too.
Yeah.
But to get it in a big fight is always something to be very notable for. Now, I notice again, congrats on your Bellator win back in February. Has it been difficult because you were one of the last people to have a fight pre all of this world going crazy? Where are you at? Did it feel good to get like a submission underground to like kind of release it out and be in competition mode right now?
Yeah, it was so great to compete. You know, I was obviously nervous as hell yesterday, just competing against Jake Shields and haven't competed in a while, and it's going to be on UFC Fight Pass, and I'm fighting freaking Jake Shields, you know. So it was that I was nervous as hell, but it was so amazing and awesome just to, like you said, get that out and just be able to compete again. And you know, hats off and thank you to Chael Sonnen for giving us athletes a place to compete when all this crap is going on in the world. So thank you, Chael, and yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Just the whole format of the event, everything. It was pretty cool, man. Like they're like, yeah, meet me at this hotel and you'll follow us to the event and you can't have anybody with you. You know, I was like, damn, man, this is like Mortal Kombat crap right here. And so, you know, I met him. We drove like out in the middle of nowhere, and it was just me. And there really wasn't that many people out there at all. They could only have a certain amount of people in the building right now, you know, and they're like had guys cleaning everything. Like if I sat somewhere, I'd get up, there's some guy spraying it off, cleaning it behind me, and like it was definitely really organized, and it was awesome, man. I can't wait to compete again in the SUG for sure. Hopefully I can.
Well, I like the fact that it looked like they had the Monsters Inc. guys coming in to like lead everything around, because I was like, even if you touched anything, they were just like so I definitely laughed a lot about that. Have you heard any rumblings? I know it's so early. They've talked about with the UFC, but have you heard any rumblings with Bellator? Is that where you expect to compete next, or do you see yourself competing more in like a submission oriented, you know, either it's SUG or something in jiu-jitsu?
I'm hoping and planning on fighting for Bellator next. You know, I signed a contract to fight for them like 2 months ago, and as I know, it's still a go, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that are gonna, you know, how they play out is gonna determine if I'm gonna fight or not. And so it's kind of a crappy thing because it's hard to get motivated 100% if you don't know if you're fighting 100%, and it's also, you know, expensive training for fights, and it's hard on your body. So I hopefully will know by the end of this week a time, a date, or if it's going to get postponed.
Because I have seen them be very cautious about how they're going to reintroduce, you know, fighting for Bellator, because there's been so many headlines about the UFC and the kind of stink that's made on a larger scale that's outside of our sport. We have people who are not even understanding our sport, just being like, nah, just because of bad public relations by the UFC. Yeah. So on the other side, watching Bellator say like, hey, listen, we're going to take our time, which is great. I just always have concern for the athletes because I see you showing up at a submission underground. I go, that's a great use of his time. Like, that's awesome that you get the opportunity to do something like that.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that Bellator is in like as big as a rush to have fights on as the UFC, because Bellator is like owned by Viacom, and I don't think that they're hurting for money, you know?
Yeah.
And everything. But, you know, I want them to throw fights as soon as possible, but at the same time, I want them to do it safely and everything. And if they have to do it where there's no crowd, which I think it's going to be, then so be it. I think it kind of sucked to fight without a crowd there. I feel like I get motivated, get pumped up by the crowd. But, man, I hope that everything gets back to normal soon and we can just all start fighting and everything. But like you said, like, you know, my grandpa's like one of the, you know, it was one of the biggest, you know, I don't know. He's like my father figure. He's the man. I love my grandpa so much. And I would love for him to be at one of my fights. And as of right now, there's no way I'd want him to be at my fights because he has pre-existing things with his health and stuff like that. And I just know if he caught the virus, that it'd be freaking horrible. So, you know, I just know that I would not want my grandpa to be at an event right now. And so, you know, if I don't want my grandpa to be there, would I want, you know, other people and other families be there. And I don't know, it's just a crazy time, man. Like, cause right now, all these protests and all these things are going on. And I just saw on the news that like, it's the virus is like increasing everywhere right now. And in California, it's like 11% rise right now because all this stuff is going on. So I don't know. It's just crazy, man. hope that everything goes back to normal soon.
Yeah, I live out here in Los Angeles, and we're day by day looking at how things are shaping up, and my wife's probably gonna head back to her job pretty soon, and you're looking at the newspaper to be like, is she gonna be safe? Like,
Yeah,
is that gonna be okay. So it hits home on a number of different levels. It's just, I don't know if you saw, but earlier, we have even a gym that got burned down, and it's one of those things where you hope cooler heads prevail and that things kind of work themselves out, but at the same point, nobody should have gym property or a business destroyed like that. So our heart hurts, and I am quite happy to see that, like, within the time, like, I started doing the show at 1, and since that time they had already reached a fundraising goal for that gym. So
I saw that they already got like $20,000 something like that already.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's only in a couple hours, so that goes to show that every so often the jiu-jitsu community can stop debating flat Earth to get together to do something kind of nice every once in a while, which is always refreshing. I have to ask you this, as we start to wind down, I'm curious to what you would tell this young man right here. And I don't know if you see it, but this is your first photo on your Instagram. What would you tell that young man right now, right here, with all the experience and time that you've had?
Probably don't spar so hard so much. Man, I used to spar. I probably still do spar a little bit too much, but man, I was doing probably 10 to 15 hard rounds of sparring like almost every single day, like doing Shark Tanks and crazy stuff, man. Paying people $20 if they give me black eyes, and it was crazy.
To be fair, I think part of that comes from, you say that you worked on this 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 sit-ups kind of mentality to get you there, and that's kind of like the workman's version of, listen, I don't know how else to do this. Like, I'm just going to do this to get to where I need to get. I know it's going to be beneficial. So having said that as you get older, you get more people who can help you achieve your goals.
For sure.
So they kind of can help craft, but they probably don't have as good of a canvas without that work ethic that you kind of instill in yourself.
I agree 100%.
It's something that I kind of understand, and I think it's really cool. But yeah, I've seen so many of my friends whenever they start talking about how many times they want to go and all that sort of stuff, I'm like, listen, Donald Cerrone is not sparring at all.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and he's made pretty good money for himself and a good career for himself. So if that guy who doesn't care about danger is going to tell you, like, hey kids, take it down a notch, maybe listen to the guy.
Something, for sure. Exactly.
Well, man, I've been very, very happy that you were able to give us a lot about your career, what was going on with Submission Underground. I would ask you this, and I think this is important to ask, which is, how do we keep you competing at some of these big events? What does it take for us to see you more? Because I got to tell you, man, until we can figure out what's going on the large scale for either Bellator or a lot of MMA, like, I kind of like you competing with us here in Grappling. What do you take to see more of that?
Yeah, I want to compete. If I don't have a fight scheduled, then I would love to compete as much as possible, and I've asked Bellator a couple times to compete, I think in Worlds, something like that, a while back, and they said no because it's kind of too close to a fight or whatever. But I think this time that they were like, just go for it, because they don't even know what's going on right now 100%. So they're like, screw it, just go compete and have fun and stay active. And thankfully they gave me the go ahead. And so thank you, Bellator, for letting me go compete. And it was awesome. And it like you said, man, it's good to get my name out there and keep competing. I think competing and just staying out there and is good. Keeps the nerves at a level of pace or whatever. And so, man, hopefully I'll be competing more, and hopefully I'll be competing in Chell Sug more too, man. That was a lot of fun. I had a blast.
I think you make sense there, dude. I think it would be good to see you do that more, especially when they have a little bit of a roster of people who fight MMA that they like to bring in and give more opportunities to. Especially because some of the guys who fight, and I won't name names, are jiu-jitsu guys who just want to make some money. Like, you ask them in person, they'll be like, I don't want to fight, bro. I need to make money though.
100%. Yeah.
They're like, well, we can make more money in grappling and jiu-jitsu. That's great. So I always want to say, like, do what you want to do. If you want to fight, go do that. But just know there's going to be more opportunities coming up for grapplers. So
sure.
that is very much my hope. Well, sir, let me go ahead and give you an opportunity to shout out whoever you want to shout out. I'm going to minimize myself, and you can go ahead and thank whoever you want to do, or shout out sponsors or anybody that you would like to, sir. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I think definitely, American Top Team, Fabiano, Performance Martial Arts, Ben Baxter, and Team Oyama, Coach Oyama. I definitely wouldn't be where I am without all of you guys. And I think Bob Squad Growers and Don Lewis Plumbing, Virus. Man, I always forget a lot of sponsors on the spot. But yeah, man, thank you to everybody. And follow me at Brent Primus 155. And hopefully I'll be in the Bellator cage in a couple months or back in the sub cage.
I like it. And I have to get the final answer on this. So you keep saying it, and I know I've mispronounced it, but you pronounced it Primus, yeah?
Yeah, Primus, yeah.
Okay. How often do you get Primus?
All the damn time. All the damn time. I literally, I used to correct people, and now I'm just like, whatever. Call me what you want.
Because you understand, you grew up similar in age to me. I'm still older than you. But for me, Primus was first. I didn't know you first, so that's where my brain goes to. Did you catch that part?
I'm sorry, it cut out. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I grew up listening to the band Primus, so they came first. And so now my stupid brain is going to Ron Burgundy your name the way I learned it first. Did you have that as an issue with them as a band growing up?
No, not at all. I think that's why a lot of people call me Primus or whatever. But I'm cool with it now. I don't care. I know my mom's always like, gosh dang it, tell them to get your name right or whatever. Even Chael Sonnen was calling me Primus or Primus. Was it Primus? Something yesterday. I was like, gosh damn, Chael, we trained together, so you should know my name, man. But, yeah, I'm used to it now, so.
That's fair. Well, I just want to make sure we do the correction on air because I picked it up maybe the first time you said it, and I said, yeah, okay, fuck that up. And then I know it, but and I guarantee you I've said it different times at different places correctly, but I didn't do that here. So I wanted to make sure we exit with that there. So if you don't mind sticking around, I'm going to say goodbye to you off air in just a second, but I just want to close this up.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this up. I want to say thank you to everybody. Thanks to Brent Primus. Boom, got it. All right. I want to close this up by telling you guys thank you so much for watching and tuning in. We appreciate you here at the Grappling Hour. The last thing we're asking you to do, as we do every single day, if you got a gym that wants to be featured on our hashtag Save Jiu-Jitsu gyms, be it COVID, be it anybody who has property damage, get in touch with us. We want to feature those gyms because we want to do our best to amplify their message in a very, very weird time. Also, one thing that you can do, you the viewer, you the person watching right now, is take out one of these things, a little notepad. Write down the names of 3 persons, places, things, and make them small businesses if you can, and very easily find ways that you can support them. How do you support them? Very, very simple ways. 1, buy DVDs, buy instructionals, buy privates, buy seminars if you can. I know there are a lot of gyms that are working together to find ways to get more gyms money that they had lost over the past few months. If you can't do anything financially, we ask a very simple thing. Offer to volunteer your time to any of your gyms, offer to help them with their organizational needs. In this time when they're going to be taking a lot of different directions on how to improve their gyms, they're going to need the help. So if you have some skills that they can benefit from, give that to your gym. I'm sure they'll very much appreciate your time. And if at the very least, very simple thing you can do, promise you, check in on your teammates. Check in on them, check their mental health, make sure everybody's good. We talk a lot about mental health in this sport, but it's very rarely that we follow up on it. If you can do one of those 3 things, that's great. But the last one's particularly interesting for this reason. If you check in on them, you can talk shit about their jiu-jitsu game, and they can't do anything to you about it right now. So think about that. It's like free reign to talk shit and not have any problems until you get back to the mats. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here. We thank you guys for tuning in. We thank you for your patience today. I know we had some issues earlier with our middle interview with Tobias, but we will bring him back on. We want to thank Nicholas. We want to thank Brent, and we want to thank you for watching. We'll be back later this week. My name's Rafa Sparza. You've been watching The Grappling Hour. We'll see you back on the mats.